Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today is a very special episode. I brought on Loren Young, and we're announcing that he's been chosen to be an author in one of our upcoming books. Loren is a business scientist over at Business CPR, and for those of you that don't know what a business scientist is, you stay tuned because we've got a lot of different things, and Loren brings a tremendous amount of value into our space, and that's why we chose to publish them. So first off, Loren, just want to say, hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Adam.
All right, Loren. So we'll start this episode the way that we start them all with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Loren, we at Mission Matters amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Loren, what mission matters to you?
I really enjoy helping business owners who are looking for financial freedom. In other words, they became a business owner to experience financial freedom. I love helping them discover some of the tools and techniques that they need to integrate into their business so that they can achieve that goal of financial freedom. And ideally, I'm helping them by bringing in some controls that allow them to make more money with less stress, because that's really at the core of financial freedom.
That's great. Love bringing mission-based entrepreneurs and executives on the show to share why they do what they do, how they're doing it, really how they're adding value into the marketplace, which Loren is certainly doing. And for those of you that are active attendees to our clubhouse that we do every Thursday, then maybe you caught Loren on that last episode. But for those of you that didn't, I mean, Loren, he's a nuts and bolts guy. Like when we talk about the numbers, the math of business, all these things, I mean, all in his wheelhouse. And he just brings a different flavor and perspective, I would say, than most, because he's not scared to get into the weeds. Like surface level advice is one thing, and it's definitely needed, but Loren is not scared to get into the math. So before we go further into business CPR, maybe let's just start a little bit further back, Loren. Like, how did you get started? Like, where did these fundamentals in this background in business, where did that come from?
It really came around through entering school. Originally, my plan was to get a business degree and then go into law school and practice corporate law. And my sophomore year in college, I took a marketing class, and I fell in love with the subject. And it really it ignited my mind, and I got to thinking about it, and I really saw myself more in a marketing and sales career. And so I dropped the idea of going to law school, and I pushed on to get an undergraduate in marketing management. And then as I was in the workforce, I started to appreciate the power of culture and how culture affects the way a business sells and ultimately the success they have. So I pushed on and got an MBA where I emphasize organizational strategy. And so for me, the game of business has been in my blood before high school. And it really does come down to, I love connecting people to the things that will help them have a better quality life.
Learn something new every day, Loren. I didn't know you were a pre-law school dropout as well. I had I had an acceptance letter, and I thought I was just taking this little sales job or this little finance job, and turned into 12, 14 years of a career in finance. I just realized that I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to be a lawyer anymore. This is awesome. And so that's interesting. Learn something new every day, Loren.
Yep.
All right, so let's go a little bit further. Okay, so in your career, so obviously you fell in love with it very early on, very early age, right? Yes. Then you graduate college, MBA. You now have some of the fundamentals. Like, where did your career take you? Like, talk a little bit more about the types of companies that you're really helping.
So out of grad school, I went to work for an industrial Fortune 100 company. Mm-hmm. It was specifically PPG Industries, paint and glass manufacturer. I entered into a role as B2B sales I was in one of the divisions that sold to a very narrow niche, and I cut my teeth in the B2B world selling industrial coatings. And what I came to appreciate about those PPG years was we were a market leader. And so getting in front of a potential customer was never a challenge. We just had to let them know we were interested in meeting with them, and they would make time for us.
Yeah.
And so it was a really interesting way to start out your sales career, because for me, where I really excelled was in dialing into what mattered. And it was really funny. This first big client I landed had an issue with one of our subsidiaries, and they had basically 18 waste drums sitting in their back lot that needed to be processed. And every time the general manager went out into his back lot and saw those drums, he got upset with us.
Yeah.
And he told me that before he'd have any conversation with me, I had to do something about those drums. And so I had to first figure out what was in the drums. It was hazardous waste, but I was able to isolate that it wasn't that big a deal. We consolidated it all for less than $800. We got rid of it. And that first year I got $500,000 in sales from it because of the fact that I took away his nuisance. And so in my B2B sales days at PPG, there was, that going out and capturing a new account, but there was also managing the dynamics associated with repeat customers, because the bulk of our sales was renew. I mean, people were just buying over and over again. So then it was about staying in tune to what their issues were, getting it resolved so that they kept on buying from you.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I wanted to kind of bring up a little bit more about your background is because, and we'll get into this more as we get into business CPR, but you have experience working for very large companies. So like your ideas and some of the systems and processes and just thought processes around how businesses are run, like being able to translate those from, very large companies, which maybe that's the goal of many of the business owners that, their long-term goals, maybe they want to become big companies, to be really take some of those best practices and those themes and thought processes and kind of bring them down into, how they make sense to our businesses, right? That for everybody that's watching this. So I think that's a really interesting, just kind of thing that you bring to the table with business CPR. So I'd say this before we go there. The markets change, job industries change, a lot going on. Obviously, last couple of years have been, some people have won, many have lost. What kind of advice would you give to maybe that new group of entrepreneurs and business owners? I'm talking about the ones that are, just graduating college or just, a couple of years out and they're thinking about going down that entrepreneurial path. Like what kind of things would you tell them?
Let me take you to my second Fortune 100 company, talk a little bit about that. And then I'll take you into how I became a small business owner after I retired as a Fortune 100 executive. So after a stint with PPG, I went to work for Nationwide Insurance Company. And there I was blessed with an opportunity to work in pretty much all of the functions of that corporation, except for legal. I never worked in the law department, but I worked in operations, human resources, corporate communications, marketing, sales, and I was also part of the corporate strategy team. And so I had a chance to during those years with Nationwide, I had a chance to experience what I like to call breadth. And so I came out of Nationwide with a lot of breadth across corporate functions, and so I stepped back after retiring from Nationwide and started looking at different opportunities. And for me, one of the big takeaways as a person considering owning their own business is, are you entering that business to give yourself a job? Are you entering it because you have passion and purpose in what you're about to do. Because the industry dynamics that you compete in really do have an effect on whether you're building something like a business to serve a broader market, or if you're really just a self-employed person performing a job and you happen to own the business as well. Because one of the big learnings for me was that initially I came into the company I acquired, and I was building a business, but over time it became more and more of a job, and I became less enthused about the products and services we were doing, and that's when I sold that business. And so I think a big part of it, particularly those who are looking to acquire a business, is to ask yourself the question: am I buying a job, or am I buying a business? Because if you're buying a job, that can be problematic.
It's great. There's a lot to unpack in there. But I want to switch focus slightly here. So I do want to spend a little bit of time on the book and maybe some of the writing you plan to contribute there. Like, we're not going to tell the audience everything because, hey, number one, we do sell books, so we want you to pick up a copy when it comes out. But also, just so you know, for everybody that's watching this, we'll bring, once the book is live and out there, we'll be bringing Loren back on the show so that we can really do a deep dive into his writing. But maybe, Loren, give us a little bit of a flavor of what you plan on bringing to the table when it comes to the next book.
So I wanted to draw against my sales and marketing background. And more specifically, I wanted to talk about what it means to sell in a small business, because the going from B2B sales, and I did do a stint at Nationwide where I was in B2C for a while. But the point was, when you work for a big corporation, it's a lot easier to connect with potential customers or prospects because you're a known entity. When you're a Fortune 100 with billions in sales, people know who you are. And when you show an interest in someone smaller, they will reciprocate that and give you an opportunity to at least talk to them. When I owned my own business, I ran into the wall on the new customer sales process. It became quite complex. And then when you couple that to, you'd start working your prospects, and then they're dealing with larger people than we were. So now I'm not the 800-pound gorilla coming in. I'm one of those small businesses competing against someone much larger, and that led me to stop and reflect on, what am I missing? And I came to appreciate that there were some foundational building blocks that weren't in place for me. And again, I'm drawing a little bit from my corporate days, but I'm also putting application to it around my small business. And it's 3 of those 7 organizing principles that I really locked in on, that I want to bring to Mission Matters. And it has to do about defining the customer, really understanding the solution that your product or service is offering, and appreciating the timing. So there's 3 organizing principles that I'm making the focal point of my contribution.
It's great. And I want to shift focus here slightly, and I want to go further into business CPR. So to kick this off, I know I didn't know until I asked you, but I got to ask the question again for the audience. You call yourself a business scientist. Like, what does that term mean? Because I like it.
One thing about the dynamic of resources to help a small business is you have practitioners like accountants and bookkeepers. You have consultants who are coming in and advising. You have executive coaches or business coaches that are coming in and providing you coaching. There's a whole array of support people that are available to a business. And within corporate America, it's always fascinating how they'll invest all of this money in these functions, and then they'll still bring the same type of people into the business. They'll bring in the consultants and the coaches, but the point is, as I was working with small businesses, I began to appreciate that there's a miss here, and it really has to do with understanding the numbers of the business. It's leading with facts as opposed to opinion or perspective or a past experience. And so, one thing that I have found with a lot of people is they have a few what I would call tricks in their bag. A couple things that they're really good at. They have a few off-the-shelf items that they can bring in, and that in many ways are quite beneficial. And their ability to work it in and help people develop new knowledge and understanding, that's beneficial. But what I found that works better for me and working with my clients is to really approach it through the scientific method, and that is to focus on what's the core question. In other words, what's our hypothesis here? And my hypothesis is always pretty locked into, what's keeping this business from making more money. And what I have found is that when you start to peel away their numbers, and we have a few financial models and tools that we use where we can drop your numbers in and quickly isolate what your issues are, and then we can quantify the cost of that. And so what we're doing is we're helping people quantify the cost of what's not working in their business. And when people can see it in black and white in the numbers, they can then prioritize. You know what? I'm gonna live with this less than ideal scenario, and I'm going to focus on fixing this. And that's what a business scientist does. Is they really lead with the data. They convert it into information that then can be used to make better decisions.
What are the types of companies that you work with that you feel get, the most benefit of working with you and your team? Is there certain industries or niches? Is it a certain, size of company revenue wise? Because at the end of this, I'll of course give you the opportunity to leave websites and things like that. But I want to make sure that the right types of organizations and businesses connect.
So it's not about the industry. There is some size factor to it. You need to be north of 1 million, aspiring for 2 to 3 to 5 to 10 million to get the full benefit of us. But really what you need a management team that recognizes what they're doing isn't working. You've got an owner who recognizes that they need to change the way they approach their business, the way they think about what's happening in their business. And so it really starts with somebody who's seeking to better understand what their business is trying to tell them. Because one of the things that I firmly believe is that the results of a business is reflected in its financial statements. It has a lot that it's trying to tell that business as far as what's working well, where's that business getting stuck, isolate and identify what needs to be done differently. And so for me, it's more about the orientation of the owner and the management team. It's about recognizing that the results they're getting aren't satisfactory. They want something better. They want something more, and they're prepared to start making changes to get to that. And so then that's what we fit best with.
So obviously in working with many businesses and having your own proprietary processes, there's a lot of potential, let's just say opportunity areas. And I don't want this to come across as a generic question, but I kind of do want you to talk a little bit about maybe some of the themes of what are some of the common problems that can be going wrong in a business that you found after doing an analysis. Because I know every business is going to be different based on size of business, based on founders, ownership, all those things. I mean, infinite, variables there. But I do know after you do enough of these, or after you work with enough businesses, certain trends or certain themes tend to kind of poke their head out, and you're like, oh, yep, okay, we got some opportunity here, and here. What are some of those themes that tend to come up?
So there's 5 common business problems that we encounter over and over again.
Mm.
One is inadequate sales. They're just not selling enough. Two is they've got poor cash flow. In other words, their sales aren't quite where they need to be. They're spending more than they should be. And so their cash flow is always a struggle. It's erratic. So cash flow is a problem. And it's really and that's really a function of the first two, because the third one is weak profits. So they've got their profits are underperforming. And then the fourth one is they have a lot of employee headaches. And then the fifth one is actually one of the harder ones to work with, but it can be the most powerful, and that's ownership fatigue. We come into situations where the owner is just worn out. They are the linchpin. Everything comes through them. They're putting in more and more hours, and they're taking out less and less from their business because of these other four problems. And so those are the five areas that we work with. Those five areas, but the one that most pressing most often is cash. It's managing cash better and smarter.
Yeah, and as people are listening to this, some of them are like, "Oh, that's me. Oh, that's me." Like, or maybe there's one or two different areas. But what I like about what you mentioned earlier is that you help prioritize, right? So, like, there's a method to how these problems or these opportunity areas can be fixed. And I feel like a lot of times, the reason why many things don't get done is because maybe there's this idea that maybe that problem or that there's not a solution for that. But once you know where that opportunity areas is, then you can kind of start working towards that solution. Am I off on that, or?
No, you're absolutely on spot. In fact, if I was to give you one word for profit, it would be action.
Yeah.
And action, in other words, profits don't materialize out of nothing. There's some set of actions that occurred before that profit was realized and reported. And understanding the connections across those actions, which ones are contributing, which ones are distracting from profits, is key. But it's also about dialing into having greater accountability for the results of your actions. And that's really where we come in, and we try to help reduce employee headaches and overcome ownership fatigue by helping connect people to the results of their actions. Because if you're going to invest this energy and effort, you want it to produce something favorable. And when people see that the actions they're taking aren't generating the results they're seeking, they're more willing to make the changes and adjustments. And so for me, it comes down to focusing on what I like to refer to as the critical few actions, not the relevant many actions that can be taken. Because you can get lost in the forest chasing after all these different things that need to get done, when in reality, there's a couple that really matter today and this week. And that's where we use the science of business to help them quantify and then take action.
It's awesome. And I love this idea of action, and I love the idea that there is a potential solution, because I feel like sometimes for owners and, founders out there, maybe that don't always know the route, like think with clarity. I mean, so much comes with clarity of understanding and working with a business scientist in this case to see where the real opportunity lies. So I want to spend a little bit of time also here, Lauren, is I understand, you've launched a new YouTube channel. You're creating a lot of great content. Like, tell me a little bit more about the channel and like just your vision for the content that you're putting out there, because it's good stuff. Like, for everybody watching, we'll put links in the show notes and all that good stuff, because I do want you to check it out. But tell us a little bit more about the channel and like the reasoning behind it.
Okay. So one of the drivers for me over my entire life is I try to understand the terminology. If I come across a word I'm not familiar with, I'll get the definition of the word so that I can understand its meaning. Because if I can understand the word and what it means, then I can determine whether or not it's got application to me in whatever situation I'm in. And so, I've been over my entire career building what I like to call a business library. And I have this massive library of business topics that I've researched, that I've pulled together over the years, because for me, words help us communicate and connect people. And so one of the things that we're gearing up for is to put this on our website. Is this business topics library is a way to easily find the definition and terms of just fundamental things, as well as things that are really beneficial that a lot of people aren't aware of. And so this business topics library, A to Z, has a ton in it. And one of the things that I began appreciating is that it's one thing to give a definition to a topic. It's another thing to show the math behind that topic. And so the YouTube channel is about mastering the math of business. And what we do on that channel is we take a business topic, we introduce it at a very high level, and then we show the components of that topic that so we can calculate what the cost is. In other words, there's certain business terms that are consistently missed in small business. They just they don't know it. They don't understand it. They're not using it. And so what I'm trying to do is help them quantify whether that's a business area they need to be more concerned about or not. And some business topics for a small business are pretty irrelevant. They're just not germane to what that business is trying to do. You'll see that in the numbers when you bring the variables together and you calculate it. It's like, okay, that doesn't matter. Whereas others will be huge levers, where if you can do something in that area, you can change the cash flow, ultimately the cash that's on reserve. Because when it's all said and done, financial freedom is about cash reserves, and cash reserves come from profits, and profits originate from sales. And so you've got this linkage, and all of these terms can have an influence. And what we're doing on Mastering the Math of Business is helping people understand the term and then be able to calculate whether or not that's a term they should be worried about.
No, and I've watched it. And for everybody watching, again, as I mentioned, we will put the link in the show notes because I want everybody to go check this out because it's a great channel. Well, Lauren, I just have to say it's been great having you on the show today. I'm excited to go further into obviously your writing once the book comes out. I'm excited to continue to follow your YouTube channel and all the great work that you're doing. If somebody's watching this and they want more information about working with you and your team, or to connect, watch the YouTube channel or any of the other content that you're creating, I mean, what's the best way for them to do that?
So businessfitnesscheck.com. Businessfitnesscheck.com is a diagnostic tool that we've developed that you take a few minutes, you enter some information into this website, and we'll give you a health assessment of your business. Because the CPR in business, CPR stands for cash, profits, and reporting. And what we've come to appreciate is that you need all three of these elements working together to have financial freedom. And so what we've concluded is that the biggest killer of small businesses is similar to the biggest killer for us as human beings, and that is cardiovascular disease. And what this businessfitnesscheck.com website does is it'll tell you how at risk your business is to suffering from business cardiovascular disease. And that's the point of business CPR, is what can you do to promote healthier cash flow through stronger profits so that you can be fit to compete and do the things that you want to do through your business. And so businessfitnesscheck.com is the best way to get started with this.
Fantastic. And we'll put all of that information in the show notes so that our audience can just click on it and head right on over and get that checkup. And speaking to the audience, if this is your first time engaging with Mission Matters as a platform or listening to an episode, we're all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and having them share their mission, why they do what they do, what we can learn from it. Like Lauren, for example, like that fitness check, that's a big deal. Go do that. Check on the health of your business. Get one of those assessments done. But the idea here is, how do we all learn and grow together? If that's the type of information and content that sounds interesting to you, definitely don't hesitate. Hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Lauren, really, it has been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to publishing your work and continuing to promote and get that out to our audience, and really just building that relationship. So thank you again for coming on the show. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you, Adam. I'm glad to be part of the team.